Good evening, Facebook family, and especially those joining us on Jamaicans.com. A wonderful Easter Sunday, Resurrection Sunday to you. Welcome to Bar Talk. I'm so glad you could join us this week because we're going to hopefully have a very uplifting Sunday, being it Resurrection Sunday, Easter Sunday, Jamaican Thanksgiving Sunday, if I could call it that. And I'll explain that further on, but thank you for joining in. Hey, listen, before we begin, and even before we mention the topic, I'd like to make a shout out to a very special family, a family that's currently in mourning for the just cruel and blatant shooting of their mother, their aunt, their sister, you name it, their teacher, their vice principal. I'm talking about the shooting of Colleen Walker, as we know back in the day, Maxine McIntyre. She was the vice principal of Excelsior High School, and she was gunned down just this week gone at her house while she was tending her gardening. It is special to me because I tell you what, when you were growing up in Jonestown, there were very few friends you have. And so I had a wonderful family, a family of Sheldon Lewis, Stephen Lewis, Trudy Lewis, Althea, and Maxine or Colleen, and the whole family with the church family we had, like people like Ainsworth Rose and Hyacinth, Lily. These people were folks that, as youngsters, especially church-bound kids at that time, was the nucleus of the friendship. And so Sheldon, who was my teenage best friend, I was just one of the guys who we used to hang out with. We used to watch reruns of Bonanza nighttime while we cook dumpling and banana and chicken back and all that kind of thing. And I remember going to his house. In fact, his mom and we're all just like one folk. And I always remember that little girl. I think I may be wrong, but she must have been the youngest of the family members. Maxine, we call her at the time, little pretty, short kid. And to see her blossom to the way she did, that she became a wonderful educator, from what I understand, and made excellent contribution. And so it is just with sadness that I really have to even mention that her passing and in the way she did. So there's the picture of Maxine and her son. I don't know which one of the sons that is. But he also went or is going to Wolmer's, which is my alma mater. So it's precious in so many ways. So Sheldon, Trudy, Stephen, I can't remember all the name, Wayne, you name it, all the folks who are part of that family, to the Walker family, like I said, the Williams, the McIntyre, to the Lewis family, and all the other ones who may have been affected in this process. It is my deepest and sincere condolences to you. I would suggest to people that they think seriously about this whole crime thing in Jamaica and the taking of another person's life, especially for someone who has done so much to the community. Again, I just thought I would mention that and say to my friends hanging there, because such is life at time. And so with that, I move on to the topic of the evening. First of all, if you're calling in on Jamaicans.com, please let me know exactly where you're calling from. And what I want you to do, once I tell you the topic, what I'd love for you to do today is to tell me what are you very thankful for today. Today is, like I said to you before, it's Resurrection Sunday. It's Easter Sunday. It's that Sunday that most Jamaicans see almost like Thanksgiving, because we never had Thanksgiving as such when we were growing up. So I want to know from you how you are dealing with it, and you're actually the topic for this evening, I might as well tell you now, the topic for this evening is coping with COVID-19 at home, finding new positive lessons in a grossly negative time period. So today is all about your introspecting on Easter Sunday, introspecting, finding ways in which you can look at your life, your home, and how are you doing things differently. In fact, I've always been told by my mama that when trouble come, picnic shot fit you. So which means in a lot of ways, we have been able to find new ways of doing things. And I just wanted to get a sense from you, how you coping? What are you doing differently? And so just before you start though, please just give me a heads up. Tell me where you're coming from and just what are you thankful for today? Because there has to be something for which you're thankful. Hi, Judith. How you doing? Judith Alpha Wolf. Thank you for calling in or for texting in. Yes, I need your help today to talk about things that I consider grateful even in a negative situation. And for me, one of the things that I find revealing to me or grateful is the fact that now I always believed that I had to be in front of everybody. I had to be in the limelight. I had to be doing things with people out there in the community. And now you're forced in a situation where you have to simply deal with things in a different manner. You have to be able to stay at home, for example. So many people who are the limelight people always believe that they had to be out there. They had to be, whatever the event is going on, whatever the new show or the gala, they had to be there. They had to make the front news. And in fact, as a photographer, I always have people who come to me and say, make sure you get me in the papers. Make sure that you get my bright side. Now, all that is got done, and you have to contend with being at home. One of the things I do realize is that I don't have to be out there to enjoy life. In fact, a lot of times people think that you have to be in the public eye to have a life. In fact, social media, including Facebook in itself, has brought us to believe that we have to be front and center to enjoy life. I tell you what, for me, one of the positive things I've been able to do was to just sit back and, for example, fishing. I haven't gone fishing in ages. And now I've been fishing, not even on the beaches, in some of the backwoods of Miramar and Sunrise. And I've been finding some rather interesting species and to just be out in the open at times. So I spend a lot of time at home. And when it gets to you enough, you kind of move out to the outdoor, the open air, towards the Everglades. I'm not telling you any spots to go, folks, but I'm telling you it's a most enjoyable experience to be out there and to be enjoying life in a different manner. So that's my thing. Alison, good evening. First time watching from New York. I'm really grateful for Jehovah God who is working miracles, and I'm giving him thanks for life. It doesn't matter what is going on around me. God is still faithful and is able to do the impossible. You know something? I appreciate that so much from you, Allison. Allison, hello from New York. Thank you so much for joining in. That's one of the things that, as a believer, it's hard to explain to other folks. That because I've seen on the news, I've seen guys says, well, no, if all the preachers out there, if God is so good to you, why can't preachers go out and touch their hands on people and they would be healed and they would be transformed? And I'm saying to you, over time we have had, this is not the first epidemic or pandemic we have had. God is still God. And it's kind of hard to explain to someone who doesn't have a belief in God. But thank you, Allison, for understanding that all this, even though some people can't understand. And listen, this is nothing new. In the Bible days, the same thing happened. There were unbelievers. And suddenly when the disciples do things, then there were guys who were willing. I don't want to preach. I'm not a preacher. Okay. The guys who wanted to buy it. But we give thanks. If you're a faith-based person, then you can truly give thanks that regardless of what is happening, God, whoever you conceive him to be, is in control. So thank you very much, Allison. Angelo, thank you. Good evening. And so Simone is calling from Fort Lauderdale, North Lauderdale. Hi, how you doing? Vivian Bailey, good evening from Tamarack. Folks, you're forgetting one thing. When you tell me good evening, please show me or tell me one thing for which you are thankful for today. I know it's rough times. But I tell you what, there's always new lessons. There's always something to be thankful for. So tell me what's happening in your household. Tell me how you're dealing with things. Are there new ways you've been cooking? How are there ways you've been able to deal with your family? Because we had a show a couple weeks ago. We talk about how people are challenged to deal with their family. Well, guess what? There's a good thing. When you have a family in this era, you are forced to find ways, if you love and care about your family, those folks who you bid hi to in the morning and you left them and you didn't come back till evening time because Johnny had soccer and so had netball and all that kind of thing. You come in, you had dinner, you went watch a movie and you went to bed. Now you have to deal with them 24/7. And we looked at it the last time from a negative point of view, but the truth of the matter is there's a positive side for it, because now when you have to stay home, if you really care, and most of us do care about your family, then you find effective ways to deal with your family. And so out of this, I'm sure will come a way in which we families, forget about what the story says. If you look on CNN and all of those things, they're projecting that they're going to be an upsurge. And we've discussed that before, upsurge in filing for divorces. But I'm also saying to you this day that there's also a flip side to that I'm quite sure that there are people who will find time to make their relationship work. Whether there are people at home or whether people long distance relationship, now you don't have any time not to communicate with people because now they're just a phone call away or they're right in the house with you. Okay, thank you folks. I see it coming in. Amanda Dawkins, hi, praying for the world. Thank you, Amanda. That's a very good thing to do, and we should all do that. Whatever you, as a Christian, I'm not going to say this one is right or that one is right. So I know, for example, it's Easter, Resurrection Sunday, Easter Sunday, but in the Jewish faith, they're going through their week of whatever the name of it is called, and there are other religions doing. So whatever religion you enjoy today, and if we all pray and seek to do differently, then it can be done. Okay. Desireen Brown is watching with you. Desireen, tell me where you're calling from. And Desireen, please tell me what is it that you are thankful for today. I'm begging of you to do that. This is, I consider Easter Sunday to be the Jamaican Thanksgiving Sunday, close only to Christmas and Harvest Sunday. If you grew up around the church, then you know that. We used to come through as kids. If I go back to Jonestown for a minute, we came out of Jonestown, for all who remember and who don't want to admit they came from Jonestown. I was a product of Jonestown, and I moved out of Jonestown, went to all over the country, lived in Allardyce Garden, but we started our roots there. And I remember Jonestown Church, and when it was Holy Week, That's a week just passed. You couldn't do certain things. You couldn't even congregate by the church. If Sheldon and all these guys and Hyacinth remember, you couldn't congregate by the church or hang out or just make certain kind of joke because Sister Lou and all of these people would get to you about a Holy Week. And Holy Good Friday, we all had to be in church and we all had to be fasting. And we're talking about the fish and the this and the what have you. But come Sunday, you all know that. Come Sunday is Easter Sunday, Resurrection Sunday, and we come to church triumphantly. And for a lot of kids at that period of time, it's like, whoa, all of that atonement, and so it's now gone, and we can now live our lives. And so we were happy as kids to fellowship and the food and the bun and cheese. Some of you know the bun and cheese and you name it, we had it. And the sorrel and everything else that go with. But we were grateful. Okay. Pauline McLean from Canada in the house. I'm grateful for life with health and strength that the Almighty God has given me and my family and friends. And this is written in the Bible. Okay. So Pauline, thank you so much. Simple things. If you are at home with your family and your friends, and you have not been part of the statistics of people who have had to bury folks, even if you have a situation where you have lost your job, even if you have had a situation where things have been not as good as they could be, it's nice to give God thanks for health and strength. If you can look over and your wife or your kids or your in-laws or just the family members are there, if you can take up a phone and still call a friend, I totally agree with you, Judith, for being thankful. Judith Oliver Wolf from New York. This too, folks, is going to pass. As sure as the sun rises, the sun sets. And as sure as this COVID-19 has come about, it will go. So my question to you, another question I have for you, and really share with me. So if you're still calling in, let me know where you're coming from. But also, think it through carefully. What would you do differently this time around? What would you do differently this time around? Because COVID-19 will go, and life will, well, first of all, will life be the same way it used to be? That's a question for us to really examine. Will life in itself be the same as it used to be, or we'll have to adjust differently? How? And how will you adjust? I know for one that every day I'm able to communicate with people outdoors or to be around people, I'll be grateful more than ever because I know it's a funny thing. I know what it is to not have. It's a funny thing that the things that we take for granted, when it's there, like going to the mall, like if you're like in Florida or New York or one of these places, or even in Jamaica, because I understand there are a lot of things in Jamaica have changed and in England over the world that now you can shop at any time of day and night. Some of the things we took for granted, folks, we have to re-examine ourselves. That now you can't go. I tried to buy fish this evening to cook, and I hear that if I didn't get to the store before 5 o'clock, it was closed. That store is normally open till about 8, 9, and if I didn't get it there, I could go to Walmart that closes or opens 24/7. So my question to you, how do we adjust to things? And how do we adjust to things that we used to take for granted? Okay, let me see who else is calling. Winsome Thomas. I'm thanking the Lord Jesus Christ for relationship, from Netherlands, Amsterdam. I don't recall having someone from there. Winston Thomas, man, have yourself a pleasant day, trusting all is well with you and that what you're doing so far will make a difference. That's another thing. Have you done anything recently to make a difference to someone? Because I know in crisis, we sometimes tend to think me, 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 me. How about doing something for someone differently? Have we thought about it? What have we done? I know for my case, I'm not bragging, but I saw a need recently because if you look on in the newspaper, especially in Miami, there were lines of people trying, they couldn't go online because their online system was just simply overwhelmed. And so if you saw those things on the newspaper, people were actually back to back in lines. We're trying to get unemployment because of COVID-19, and people were back to back looking for applications, and it became a health crisis in those lines. So I thought to myself, I'm here, I have a studio, I have a digital press that can print flyers, booklets, everything was sitting there. And I decided not out of, doing something good for my neighborhood, I simply called Dale Holness, the Brad County, Mayor Brad County, and just called him up and said, hey, listen, can I provide you with some applications? He says, we need them. We need to make a run to some of the churches. How many could you provide? He says, I said, how much you need? He said, you need 2,000 applications. So Dale, I'm on it. And I had enough supplies to do about 1,500 and to deliver, and still have some here. And like I said, this is not about boasting. But in my mind, if one person from those 1,500 applications got a job, then I would have made a contribution. So the reverse side is, what about you? We are at home. Some of us are complaining as to what we do and what we're not doing, what we're getting, what we're not getting, the fact that things are short at home. It's a good time for humanity to show. I wish I had that clip with Tyler Perry, who did something amazing. Some older folks walked into the supermarket and bought their food, or they thought they bought their food. And when they got to the cash register, they were told that their supplies, their grocery was paid. Perry did that in about 70 different supermarkets across Atlanta and another state. He can afford to do that, but I don't think he's thinking of boasting. He's doing and he's known for doing stuff like that. Now, we don't have to feed people. We don't have to, some of us don't have that kind of money. We are on the unemployment line just the same. But what are we doing differently to help people? Let me hear. Okay, so I'm back. Gregory, as always, my brother, how you doing, man? Gregory Cole, you can find him on the Midday Connection in the days, uplifting music, nice vibes. Check out Gregory Cole and the Midday Connection. Jordan Campbell, good evening, Jamaica, watching from United Kingdom. Stay safe, guys. Blessings, blessings, blessings. Jordan Campbell, thank you so much. Jane Boyd, good evening from Toronto, Canada. Angela Cornwall, Liverpool, New York, United Kingdom. Miss Brown, Desireen Brown says, I'm thankful for, or Desmond, I can't get the first name, but the last name is Brown. I'm thankful for the slowdown. It gives me time to reconnect with my family. My marriage feels brand new. And I'm also, come on phone. And I'm also thankful that I get the time to think about think life in general on a different level, positive coming out of this. I love that. I really love that. Slow down. I'm thinking about myself because I had my truck, for example, that I throw things into all the time when I'm going to do shoots and video and photos for different things, or boxes of paper for my business. I sometimes just take it's a vehicle, it's a truck, and I took it for granted. And just when the slowdown occurred, my truck had problems. And so thankfully, I had the time for the slowdown to take care of my truck. But in the process of taking care of my truck, I realized there's more that I had to do. So I had to make sure that the other things that were not breaking at the time, that I went ahead and make sure that it happened. Because for sure, you need your vehicle, you need your family. So in my case, it was my vehicle, but for other people, it's your family. And sometimes we need to slow down, like this person says, because your family is important and you need to take care of family business. And like I said before, it's easy when you pass people like a choo-choo train and you say hi, and some of you even pray in the mornings before you leave. And you come back home and you make the cursory courtesy of saying, hi, how was your day? Da, 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 da. And you cook some food, you sit and you eat. Some of you don't even eat together. And then you watch a movie and you go to bed. And that's it. Sum total out of a 24-hour day, you think about it. 8 hours on the job, 2 hours of traveling, sometimes that's 10. Minimum 6 hours of sleep, you're gone into 16, and the rest doing everything else except communicating with your family. So I could understand that slowdown because it makes a whole lot of difference in terms of just how you're able to meet with your family. And so if there's anybody out there who are grateful today on a Resurrection Sunday that not only did Christ arose, but your family has a chance of reconnecting, then even out of this negative situation, there's a positive. My hope is for you that once this is gone, that you will continue to nourish that connection or the reconnection that you have made. Andrea Garner, Mendez Garner, good evening. Devonna Jones or James, pardon me, from Bermuda, good evening. Jordan Campbell, brilliant, thank you, I appreciate it. Winston Thomas, preach about repent. Winston Thomas, I tell you what, when I left college, or my first college, Bethlehem Teachers College, I got a scholarship to go to UTC, United Theological College. I mean, I've said this before. I got my books, I went to a couple of classes, I studied at home, and I realized that as much as I love the gospel and I love Christianity, that I was never a pastor. I think some people are called and some people go. And I think some of the critique you have nowadays on people on the street who are in it for different reasons is that they didn't have a calling. I don't think I had a calling, so I went. So I decided to transfer and did regular UE and did pretty much education and teaching. And so that was my thing. I haven't said that I do believe everybody can preach somehow. But I'm not necessarily preaching here today. I'm talking and having a conversation. And if somebody gets something from it, then glory. But thank you so much. Denise, if Phadnis is watching. Denise, let me hear your thoughts. Denise, how are you doing today? Tell me, I know you are a hardworking person. So on days like this day today, Denise, tell me what are you thankful for? And exactly what lessons have you learned from life? Talk about lessons. Had a lady that I follow on Facebook, and I didn't get to put it up this evening, but I asked her permission to put up her quotation, and she said it best. She said it, wow, it's amazing that my inbox on my phone has gotten so lonely from all these guys since the COVID-19. You know what she's getting at. So another thing she was able to rid herself of is all those folks who really probably had wives, had steadies, and all these people, but they were blowing up her phone because they want to, let us say, holler at her, But now, all of a sudden, that they have to stay put. It's amazing how circumstances, if there's a positive from this, just weed out all of those people. So she got a chance to see who was real and who is not. Which is another thing you could give thanks for. This environment also, the people look out for you, because there's some people who call on you, check on you often just to see how you do. And in that same vein, hey, Eddie Edwards, how you doing, man? Out of the blue this week, he just called for no other reason to check upon a brother to see how our brothers do. That's the kind of thing, that kind of friends you know and learn. I have other people like Commissioner Denise Grant, and I don't want to start naming people that they just call in to say, hey, how are you doing, So I really appreciate those people. Angela Lewis Brown, greetings from Texas, the Lone Star State, Texas bigger than ever. Trisha Sang is watching you. Hi, Trisha. ZZ Palmer Lewis, hello from Maryland. One thing that we can do to be a bit more courteous and considerate and stop buying. I'm liking this. I see where it's going. And stop buying 500 rolls of toilet paper. That's another way you can. She's right. You are so right, ZZ Palmer Lewis. That is something that may not seem like a big deal. But you realize that when a grocery store has 600 rolls of toilet paper, and you go out and you decide to buy 500 of it, for which you'll never use. They'll turn brown, they'll turn whatever color, and if you had to use all of those, you probably need to see the doctor, right? So my thing is, be considerate, like she said. One of the things that we don't have, if you don't have money to give, if you don't have tangibles, if you can't do anything else, you can simply exercise consideration for people. And I really appreciate that. So the next time you decide to go and buy extra food, extra this, which when you decide to hoard things, remember there are people out there who need it. Okay, Tiffany from New Jersey. Happy Easter to you all. Great topic. Thank you, Tiffany. I'm thanking for health and strength. My problems are very minor compared to many. I have the ability to work from home now. It is so giving me an office environment break, and that is mentally desperately needed. I've never thought about that. But so many of us, and I too, at the end of my working in the school system, I had gotten to a point where I'll be driving on I-95 to get to work. And I used to talk to a friend of mine, Kenyatta. Sometimes we talk about ideas about technology and doing things and software, and a few friends we used to talk to. And as soon as I got off 95 to turn on that road to get to work, my heart dropped. Because I'm entering into an environment that I considered it caustic at the time. And therefore, if I had an opportunity to work at home, that would give me a lease on life. I still get paid. I still am able to do my job and make a contribution. And I would get a chance to be home with my family. So that's another good thing that we can see from this pandemic. That many of us have an opportunity to be with our families, to do things that chances are would never have to do or just the hours. Sometimes when you're at the regular 9 to 5, you go for lunch and it's 15 minutes and somebody it's 15 minutes or it's 5 minutes or 2 minutes past your lunchtime and they start to wonder where you are. Funny now, as long as you get the job done, it is acceptable. And maybe this is the way of the future. So think about it. Moving forward, one of the lessons we learn for the future is that not all brick and mortar jobs are necessary. In fact, your employer might be able to pay you more because he doesn't have to pay that much for the facility for which you work. It's a day and age that many of us have computers, or many of us, in my case, by when I was working, my computer at home, or my system at home, or my internet at home was a lot faster than what they had at the school system. So there again, that is probably the way of the future. Ivani, thank you, Denise Ivani, for call. I am grateful for time to spend reconnected with self, concentrating on the uncommon opportunity that may come out of this. I want to pause right there. Excellent, Ivani. I really appreciate that, because many of us are in such a hustle and bustle of life that we never really take time to stop and think and re-examine and look at life differently. So now this is a pandemic that creates an opportunity. So while you're at home and you are worried about everything else, it's time for, I'm quite sure the word you can imagine is introspection. For us to look at things, and I've done so. Many times I leave, I go with my little fishing rod, and I'm getting annoyed at these turtles who are biting at my line and those kind of things out here in South Florida. It's an opportunity to look at life, to look at just things around me, to acknowledge the friendships that I have and the people who have made a difference in my life. Even the other day after doing that, I called up a friend of mine, a fellow photographer, and I called him and I hailed him up. I said, hey, listen, man, I appreciate the fact that when I was going into this business, that you are one of them that was there as a support system. People need that. And so this is a time that you may need to introspect, but while you're introspecting, be grateful to folks around you and let them know. And also find a way to figure out how you can contribute more significantly in their lives as you go on. Talking about contribute, just remember that today is my son's birthday. Brandon, happy birthday to you, my son, and to my daughters, Nia, Natalie, and my other adopted daughter, Kenisha. You know, I have these my family seem to expand with people that I call sons and daughters that are extension of my biological kids. But these are people who I appreciate, who have played a lot in my life, and I just want to let them know. All right, moving right along. Marcio, good night from Switzerland. Hey, Marcio. How's it out there? Marcia says, I'm thankful and grateful for life, my family all around the world, my friends. And let me see that a little bit more. I probably need to, my friends, my associates. Pray for that we have unity worldwide. God's blessing. Thank you so much, coming all the way from Switzerland. Praying for unity all around. There's another thing we have realized, that we have political segregation, we have color segregation. It takes a simple virus to show us that we are all one of the same. And I remember when it started, some of us black folks say, no, it's not a black folks thing. And somebody says it's only for the Chinese people. And no, if you this, and if no, it doesn't affect youth. It only affects older people. It affects us all. And so while we try to divide, one of the lessons from this, one of the positive lessons from this thing, is to realize that we are more alike than we're different. So all these people who try to politically divide us, to racially divide us, to economically divide us, understand this is maybe just a sampling of what could come if we do not set things in place. Because if you think about it, of all the wars, of all the things we have over the years, this one virus has made such a unimaginable impact worldwide. So once again, the lesson is we're more alike. And for all of those things that they have blue blood or they have better blood or they have blue eyes or black eyes or green eyes or whatever, what do you have? Listen, we are all the same. All the same. Marcio and Denise, I'm also thankful for my family in the healthcare field, and they're all doing well and okay. Good time out to shout out those people in the healthcare industry who are actually doing a marvelous job. I thank you all for being there and for making sure that we stay safe, even at the risk of their own lives. If you think about it, police officers have died, nurses, doctors, they're politicians, they're even the Prime Minister of England who was blue eye or whatever eyes he is, he was just caught it just like anybody else. And so my thing is, we got to give thanks to folks. We got to give thanks to the people who work and the nurses and doctors. I have people who tend to want to stay away from nurses and people in the health field because they're exposed. Listen, appreciate them because we are all exposed. Really do. Let me go through a couple more. I'd like to close out by suggesting or asking you to let me know what happens after all this is said and done. How are you going to deal with some of the challenges? How are we going to move forward? Some of the lessons of life. Can anybody just let me know how are you dealing with some of the lessons of life? How are you going to use those lessons to move forward and to live differently? What would you do differently? What would you share? What would you not share? You don't even have to go that detail, but give me one thing. So you're thankful, you're grateful. There are so many of us are grateful for things that we have now realized are important to us, our family, our friends, the fact that we still have a job, the fact that we can still work from home, and many things like that. But looking forward to the future, what is it that we would do differently? I tell you what, for me, I would not change the way I do my health prevention stuff. I'm not telling you I'm going to walk around with a mask, and I'm not going to walk around with the mask, as I said, or walk around with gloves on my hands, so forth. But I would be very careful, even now more than ever, of how I interact with people and just general hygiene. I'm always like a hygiene freak. But now I really believe that I would do things in a different manner. While I wait on you to come up with those ideas, let me just remind you that Bar Talk still continues for a couple more Sundays, and that one of the Sundays we have coming up is Mother's Day. Mother's Day is going to be a very interesting one because Mother's Day Bar Talk is entitled Mama's Boy, Mama's Boy, a dedication to the mothers who fathered us. And all of us macho men, some of us, we don't like the word Mama's Boy, but let me assure you that I'm a certified Mama's Boy. My mama raised me in a lot of ways that my dad wasn't around. Of course, I know my dad, but for the most of my life, my mother has been the person who raised me and did all for me. And when that man wasn't around, she stepped up to the plate and made sure that you did what you had to do. And so Mama's Boy tend to have a negative connotation. We want to look at Mama's Boy. We want to look at what mothers have contributed to men and how many men are out there that are have been grateful to a mother who fathered them. I remember getting a standing ovation in college for saying that. I think I mentioned it on the show before. Um, as being the valedictorian, I mentioned that my mother is the one who fathered me, and I was surprised. I never thought it was that an impacting thing. But there, it reflects the fact that there are so many people out there who are understanding that, from mothers to the guys who became solid fathers because they were raised by a mother. So we're going to discuss some of the issues with that, and not even issues, some of the high points of that. So if you have a story, this will be aired on May 10th. Hopefully we may be having a studio audience. If not, Bar Talk will still be on Jamaicans.com. We may have to do it virtually or so forth. But if you have an interesting story, if you want to send it to me, or if you want to write it down, if you want to send it to me via a clip, anything about your mom or being raised by your mom and why you're happy to be a mama's boy. If you have some issue with the notion mama's boy, still send me that clip. Let me know about it. We're going to have a wonderful time. Hopefully there are some prizes and surprises. We can honor some mothers, and we can do that in fashion. So once again, I thank you for being part of Bar Talk. Thank you for your continuing listenership. Thank you, Jamaicans.com, for making this another special evening for me. I really appreciate doing this. Again, I miss my friends who are part of Bar Talk, who are normally the studio audience, like the Cheryl, like Dennis, like Kevin Stew, like Gillette Stedman, and Joanne, or Joan Howard. She don't let me call her Joan. Let me not say. And all these friends who are part of the studio audience. We'll get back to that at some time. But for the meantime, this is Luke Ballantyne coming to you from Moment to Remember Studios. Happy to be on Jamaicans.com. And thank you for another edition of Bar